What's going on, everybody? It's Doc, aka Eric, coming at you from the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. If you're listening to us on the podcast, thank you for tuning in. No D Mendy, no Art, no Cheesecake, or no Marty this week because we have a special episode and we have a special guest because we're talking about the player prop best bets that are going to make you money, that are going to help you profit, they're going to help you quit your job earlier because none of us like working. And I got the best guy for that. It's Nick's MLB Picks, Mr. Nick F. What's up, sir? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Like I was telling you, my wife is due with our second child any day, so it's just that kind of just scramble mode right now. But I'm hanging in there. We've been great.
Awesome to hear, man. And look, we're close to 1 month before the season is starting. The books are open. And me and Nick, we're doing the dirty work. We're scraping the floors. We're scrounging through these books because we're trying to find you the best player prop, best bets to help you profit. And like I said, we've looked through. We want to give you what we think are great picks to put your money towards if you choose to tailor our advice. And disclaimer out there that, if you have gambling problems, anything to make sure that you consult, there are hotlines out there to not invest any money that you're not willing to lose on there. But I got to say, Nick is a brilliant mind in the fantasy baseball and MLB community. So, Nick, I want to give you the floor. Talk a little bit about what you've been doing for this, this year and years past.
Yeah, so this is my favorite time of year. It's just kind of weird because there's not actual baseball going on aside from spring training, but as soon as all the win totals come out, all the player props come out, this is like grind time. And I mean, I do this all off season, still looking into all these things and just preparing for it. But when everything comes out on the books is when it's my favorite time of year. I really think this is what's that?
I was going to say, would you say like you're a kid in the candy store?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Or a pig in crap, So, but I tell my buddies all the time, this is the most profitable, I think, block of baseball bets I will have all year. There will be it's a roller coaster ride during the season. I mean, I'm going to have awful days. I'm going to have some great days, but hopefully the good ones outweigh the bad ones. But last year, my player props card was 11-2 plus 11 units, 11.4, I think. And my only two losses were Luis Roberts over on RBIs, and I missed Michael Brantley's batting average prop by 0.2 of a point. So it was a really good players prop card last year, and I am just as excited for this one.
I love it. 11-2 will go anywhere good in my books on there. And, this is something that we enjoy doing. So if you're on the YouTube version, I'm going to show Nick's player props picks right here. We're going to go into about 5 or 6 that he feels the most confident on in more detail. If you are listening on the podcast version, I'm going to go through them real quick. It is Corey Seager over 275 batting average, Wander Franco over 14.5 home runs, George Kirby over 10 wins, Bogarts under 18.5 home runs, Juan Soto over 285 average, O'Neal Cruz over 24.5 home runs. That'll be an interesting one. Carlos Santana under 19.5 home runs, William Contreras over 19.5 home runs, Christian Javier over 11.5 wins, Albies under 22.5 home runs, Acuna over 275 average, Seiya Suzuki under 22.5 home runs, and Freddie Freeman over 295 batting average. Now, Nick, where are the websites that you found these props on?
These props can be found on Bovada, and I know some people don't have access to this book. That's just where I get them. There are alternate ways you can bet them, but most of them should be on other books. Not all of them will be, but I use Bovada for these bets.
Okay, gotcha. So, Nick, I'm going to pull your list up again. And out of these, I believe 13 that you have, tell me the first one that you really like and why you're confident on it.
My favorite bet on this card, and I might make it a 3-unit play before the offseason is over, is Corey Seager's batting average prop over 275. if any of you listen to any kind of fantasy baseball thing this offseason, you know all the different things going on about people hyping up Corey Seager, the shift restrictions, right? Corey Seager had a 283 expected batting average in 2022. His career expected batting average is 293. His career batting average is 287. And since 2020, he has lost 58 hits due to the shift. That's first in Major League Baseball. He's been shifted against 93% of his at-bats in 2022 and 90 outs made on grounders, line drives to the three-man side of an infield in 2022, first in Major League Baseball. That stat was from Jeremy Frank, and I think it's like random MLB stats, I believe. I don't remember what his Twitter page is called. But yeah, so Corey Seager has been super unlucky, especially last year. I think his batting average was like 250 last year. I'd have to look to double check.
It was 245.
245, even worse than that. So
242 BABIP, by far
Okay.
the lowest of his career.
Yeah, so and that's by far an outlier. And I think just as players regress in anything, there's positive regression as well. And I think Corey Seager is due for some serious positive regression, especially with the new shift restrictions, not the shift ban, right? Because we saw the Red Sox the other day shifted on Joey Gallo in the outfield. There was some talk about that in the offseason, potentially doing it. I don't think Corey Seager will be a guy that people do this against, though. He's not quite as extreme as Joey Gallo is. But this was, for the human element, this was Corey Seager's first year in Texas on a massive contract. We know a lot of players struggle in their first year in a new contract. And I say struggle. He still had an amazing season. And this is a little spoiler alert, but Corey Seager is my pick for American League MVP this year.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I have him 40-1. So it's definitely not like he's the favorite to win it, but he is one of my 2 American League MVP picks. I'm all in on Corey Seager. I think year 2 in Texas is going to be great. I really do.
So, Nick, my question for you, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm not as familiar with batting average props. One of the things that has plagued Corey Seager is just health. He's had Tommy John surgery essentially on his elbow. He played 151 games last season, so he's fairly durable. But 95 the year before that, 52 in the shortened season, 134, but 26 the year before. Is there a minimum amount of games needed to play for him to kind of clear this batting average threshold?
There is not. Last year, I bet on Chris Bryant's over batting average prop, and I don't know how many games he played. It was not that many, but that one cashed. And I believe that all of these plays have action. I can double check right now. But yeah, I don't think there is a minimum. And that is also why I'm betting the average prop instead of home runs or RBIs or runs or even hits, like whatever his over on hits is. I think betting on batting average props is actually the safest over of any over prop in this season you could bet, because it does kind of eliminate as much as you can the injury element of things.
Yeah, no, I agree. Unless somebody is playing through something that is going to, kind of deteriorate their batting average, it's not as cumulative as home runs, RBIs, hits, stolen bases, things of that nature. So I love that call from there, especially if there's no minimum games he has to play. I'm going to pull my betting card up, and this is everything I've done so far, courtesy of DraftKings and Caesars. So what I have on here, and I'll go through mine in detail one by one, but I have Byron Buxton under 31.5 home runs, Salvador Perez under 29.5 home runs, CJ Cron under 90.5 RBIs, Kyle Wright under 13.5 wins, Shohei Ohtani under 210.5 strikeouts. Those are all on DraftKings. And then Joey Votto under 18.5 home runs, minus 115 on Caesars. Now, I look at that list and I'm just thinking, I must be a hater because I picked so many unders on there. But I kind of think that's where the juice is sometimes. And I'll start out with Byron Buxton. And this is a guy that has just never been able to be healthy. And that's the first thing that I'm banking on from here. Is he's entering age 29 where he's only played 100 or more games once in an MLB season, and that's when he was 23 years old. I look at somebody that has a career K rate of 29.1% and somebody that has never cleared 31 homers in a season. Now, I understand he had 28 in 92 games last year, but he's been somebody that has notoriously been a fast starter, and somebody that has undergone a lot of injuries, whether it's been to his lower body, knees, ankles. He's had vertigo, concussions. He just seems to have minor fluke injuries as well. So I think Byron Buxton, what has really helped him has been his pedigree. Somebody that was the number 2 overall pick in the 2012 draft, and he has shown flashes of this upside. But for me, 31.5 home runs is a cumulative bet that I'm willing on somebody to play over 120 games, and I just don't think Byron Buxton is going to be that guy. So I looked on Caesars. This is actually 28.5. So I think with 3 home runs buffers on another site, I really feel confident about this.
I don't have an argument there other than if Byron Buxton plays 120 games, 130, I mean, like you just said, I mean, the only time he played more than 100 games was in 2017, right? So, I mean, he runs into walls. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say as far as if he's going to be healthy or not. The expression that I think the fantasy footballers always used with Will Fuller is he's too fast for his own hamstrings. I think Byron Buxton is just one of those dudes who he's so athletic. It just doesn't do him any good as far as preserving his health.
Nick, let me tell you, people say put your money where your mouth is, and I've been talking about Byron Buxton being bad for years, but I've never bet on a prop of his, and now I am. And this is going to be the year that he mashes like 40 home runs and steals 30 bases.
Just going to say that. I was like, so this is the year then. This is the year of Byron Buxton.
This is the year of Byron Buxton. So if anybody decides to tail me on this, you have for me to blame. Nick, I'm going to pull your betting card up here again. And what is another bet that you really like and want to go into more detail
on? So another one that I really like and my friends in my group chat really, really don't like is Ozzie Albies under 22.5 home runs.
Okay.
All right. So this is a definitely not a favorite of some people. Like, I don't have any problems with Ozzie Albies. I think he's an awesome baseball player. In 2022, he was on pace for 20 home runs. He has middling average exit velocity. And then I'm not just looking at his stats from last year, right? And the reason I care about his average exit velocity is because of this new environment, right? We don't have the juiced ball. It's gone. This ball's dead. I don't know if they will change the ball again. We never know that, but I'm betting on it being pretty similar. We saw a drop in 62 players that hit 25 or more home runs in 2021, down to just 41 players hit 25 or more home runs in 2022. I said the new ball is my reasoning on this. The new ball finally rewards players who hit the ball hard. Ozzie's an outstanding player. Like I said, he can hit for average. He can steal. He'll score a ton of runs. He'll knock guys in that Braves lineup. I said, but his home run ceiling is not going to be 23. And when I sent that to my buddies, they were not super happy about it. A couple Braves fans in there. And then lastly, Truist Park is 15th in Savant's park factors, which isn't bad, but it's not good. It's definitely not doing him any favors. And I didn't even mention any of his health issues. They've been fluky, right? It's been a broken pinky, some different things and whatnot. Definitely not going to say Ozzie Albies is an injury-prone player, but if he does play all of his games, I still do not think that he's a 23 home run player anymore.
You're talking to a guy that loves unders, and I like this for the most part. And I think you brought up the injury point because he did break a pinky last year. He had some foot issues. I'm more worried from a fantasy perspective of what you would see from him on stolen base, because in Roto, when he had the 30 home run, 20 stolen base season in 2021, I think that was his ceiling. But the 2021 season wasn't the happy fun ball. That was 2019 when he hit 24 home runs in that campaign, playing 160 games. But he had 30 and 156. Does that worry you at all in a kind of non-happy fun ball era or happy fun ball season that he hit over that mark?
So he hit 30 home runs in what season was that?
In 2021, and the notoriously known happy fun ball season was 2019.
Yeah, I still think that was still part of the juiced ball era. 2021, okay. I think like this year was the first year where they're like it was totally 90% of the baseballs. Obviously, the Yankees games and the Rangers games had some different baseballs with that article that came out this winter. But this new ball should be here to stay unless they alter it a little bit. But I still consider that year part of the juiced ball era where the balls were just flying around. I mean, you remember the year where the Twins and the Yankees had like 6 or 7 players with 20 home runs. And you just had like all of these random guys with middling exit velocities just mashing the ball out of the park. And you're not going to see that anymore. I think this is a new era of baseball. And I think the 3 outcome aspect of it is gone. And I don't think it's going to be back this year. Maybe next year, but we're betting for this year.
I like it. And when you look at Ozzie Albies, his average exit velocity looking at Baseball Savant is in the 26th percentile. And for those home runs he pulled last year, and at Truist Park, the right field fence down the line is 325. Right center is 375. So a little bit further there, but somebody that as a switch hitter definitely seems to be more favorable from the lefty. And I will say the one thing about the Braves is they have a lot of depth. They have Vaughn Grissom, Orlando Arcia. It always seems like they sign these young players at a great deal at a discount. So, maybe just from a maintenance perspective, they give Ozzie Albies some rest. The next bet that I like, and pulling it up on my card here, is Salvador Perez under 29.5 home runs, which is minus 110 on DraftKings. So for me, Salvador Perez has cleared that mark once in his career. It was in 2021 when he had 48 home runs, which is by far an anomaly. Now, he's flirted with this number multiple times. He had 23 home runs last year in 114 games. He had 27 in 2018. 27 in 2017, 22 the year before, 21 the year before that. But he's actually only cleared this number once. Now, one of the things for me that worries me, actually not worries, is the opposite, is they have MJ Melendez, who will be able to relieve some of the duties at catcher. MJ Melendez, one of the best switch hitting catchers and young prospects that the Royals have. So I think Salvador Perez isn't a lock to play almost every day like he did in 2021 when he played 161 out of 162 games. Last year, he played 114, which I think we see somewhere in the middle of that. Salvador Perez is also the injuries are catching up to him. He's turning 33 years old. He's had a variety of injuries, most notably to his thumb area, where he seems to be missing time each season. And if you think about it, when you grip the bat, that's something that can plague you from there. I just think that he's somebody that 1 year really did hype him up, because how often do you see a catcher hit 40 plus home runs? It is very much an anomaly. And I think that has been something in recency bias that has propped him up over the years. I know that he still hits the ball hard last year, average exit velocity, 88th percentile, hard hit percentage, 91st percentile. But just from a counting stats perspective and the games that he'll play, I just don't see him clearing over 29 home runs. And he could hit 25, 26, and that'd be a great season, but it's not going to be the over from what DraftKings is giving us.
And one last thing to bounce off of your point is Kauffman Stadium is 28th in right-handed hitter home run park factors, which I know as hard as Salvador Perez hits the ball, if he hits one, it's gone anywhere. But that's just one extra thing to look into for Salvi. I like the under, but I'm not going to bet against Salvador Perez personally. But I like that bet. Like you said, with unders. I mean, there's health things. He's 33 years old. He's got a lot of miles on him. MJ Melendez should relieve him of some of that, and hopefully he DHs a lot. But all in all, I think the under on Salvador Perez home run prop is a safe one as well.
Thank you for just propping me up with that juicy nugget about Kauffman Stadium, Nick. I wish that you and I could disagree on a lot of this, but great minds think alike.
Maybe we'll find one here.
No, I think the teams one is where we're going to butt heads a lot, yes. And then the viewers are going to not know which side to take. But Nick, I'm going to pull your list up again. What is another bet that you feel very passionate about?
Very passionate. It's hard to be very passionate about Carlos Santana, but I'm very passionate about Carlos Santana hitting less than 20 home runs this year. So last season, he did a lot of his damage in T-Mobile Park, which was 18th in park factors. And he's dropping down to PNC, which is 24th in park factors. He hit 19 home runs in 2022 and 19 home runs in 2021, his last couple seasons. He's turning 37 in April, I believe, and he hasn't hit 20 home runs since 2019. I also have my doubts that Carlos Santana is going to play every day, being 37 by the time the season starts. G-Man Choi is there. G-Man Choi is not going to go anywhere. And even if he does DH on days that G-Man Choi plays first base or DH, they also have Andrew McCutchen, who's older and who he's going to need to DH. They also have Connor Joe, who plays outfield and first base as well. So they have, surprisingly, Pittsburgh has a depth problem there, which I wouldn't call it a problem for an actual baseball team. But for this bet's sake on hitting the over, I think Carlos Santana is just one of those guys who he just goes on a tear when he's hot. And last year, after he got traded, he was just scorching. And coming to Pittsburgh, the ballpark change, the team environment change. I don't think the clubhouse is going to be as fun to be in as Seattle's was last year. So I really like Carlos Santana's under 20 home runs, so under 19 and a half.
The thing about Carlos Santana, and when Nick texted me these picks, the Carlos Santana one made my jaw drop in a good way. Carlos Santana, if you play in an OBP league or if you play in a points league in fantasy baseball, he's great because he has a career 15.2 walk percentage, 14% last year, and somebody that doesn't strike out a lot. But when you do look at the advanced metrics, 17.4 K percentage, which isn't awful, but it's his worst since 2015, and the power just usually isn't there. 19 home runs last season, 19 the year before, but somebody that has kind of seen that go down and isn't guaranteed an everyday role, and especially in a lineup like Pittsburgh where they don't have to pitch him good balls. I feel very confident. That is one of the ones that I highly endorse. So, Nick, I'm with you on that.
Sweet.
Looking at my next one, I love CJ Cron under 90.5 RBIs at -110 on DraftKings. Now, you might hear this, and first thing that's going to come to your mind is, Eric, he had 102 last year, and he had 92 the year before that. So he's cleared the last two over. Now, while that's true, he's entering his age 33 year. The Rockies just lost Brendan Rodgers for an extended period of time, probably the entire season because of a dislocated shoulder suffered in spring training. But what I think is really interesting, and I want to give credit to my co-host Marty Tallman on the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball podcast. He had mentioned that the Rockies are going to give their veterans rest at home games. And Bud Black came out with a quote saying, we're going to do it a little bit more in tune with that because of altitude. And saying, we've talked about it this offseason, probably more than any other time. Generally speaking, you will probably see a little bit more of a guy not starting at home than what you would have in the past. And CJ Cron even kind of commented saying, I was pretty adamant about being out there, but Denver is a little bit different than most places. I learned that the hard way. Now, I think this line is inflated because he does play in Denver. He played 150 games last year and 142, which were the most of any years of his career. But when he comes out and says that, you have to think that he's going to miss at least 5 to 10 games, and that's not factoring in any injury. Now, granted that the Rockies have the worst lineup that they've probably had in years, and that says something. But CJ Cron last season, a 25.9% K percentage, the second highest of his career, or 6.8% walk percentage, which was one of the lowest of his career. I think he's going to be somebody that when he does play, he hits the ball hard. But once again, RBIs are cumulative. I don't see the Rockies having a lot of people on base to necessarily drive in those runs. So I think that this is a recency bias pick. And if you just look at some nuggets, I think that it's going to give you kind of a better perspective of what to expect this year. And for that reason, I'm taking Cron under that RBI total of 90.5.
I like that one a lot too. Just not getting the best vibes from the Rockies either. I mean, their owner comes out saying that this can be a 500 ball club. That's just not a vote of confidence for your team. And I know that doesn't have anything to do with CJ Cron as an individual, but the human element factor doesn't get put into these situations enough, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And this is someone that had arthroscopic knee surgery in 2021. So going into his age 30 or his age 33 season, like these are things that can come up. And just funny nugget, I like talking about the Rockies. They hired Jeff Bridich a couple of years ago to be their general manager, and he graduated from Harvard, so everybody assumed that he was smart. But like in baseball, it doesn't matter about what school you went to. It's like, do you know the sport or not? And obviously he didn't, because they paid the Cardinals $50 million to take Nolan Arenado.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they have Michael Toglia. I don't know exactly the correct way of saying it, but I mean, he's a first base prospect. I don't know if he'll be DHing or whatnot, but I imagine, despite the Rockies being awful with prospect and time management, I still think that they're going to want to get him up more this year, especially if CJ Cron needs some days off.
I agree with that. Nick, great thinking so far. So we're about the halfway mark here. Nick, I'm going to pull up your card again. What's another bet that you like with your reasoning?
So another bet that I like is William Contreras over 19.5 home runs.
I do like that too.
This is the same exact line that they set for Carlos Santana. William Contreras is a better hitter than Carlos Santana. I'll just state the obvious right there. All right, but so William Contreras last season hit 20 home runs in just 97 games. He was 76th percentile in average exit velocity, 97th percentile in max exit velocity, 84th percentile in hard hit percentage. He's getting a park upgrade for right-handed power, going from Truist, which is 15th, which I talked about earlier, and he's going to American Family Field, which I'll never get used to saying, which is 8th in right-handed power.
Is that the Brewers' new stadium name?
American Family Field.
Gosh, that just sounds so bad.
Yes, it does. So his 140 game pace is what I'm calculating. Catches, maybe he won't catch every day. So this is without the park upgrade. His 140 game pace for home runs is 28 home runs. He should catch or DH just about every game. Obviously, some days off and whatnot. But I really like William Contreras this year. They stole him from the Braves. Not saying that was a bad trade for the Braves. I love Sean Murphy. I think anytime you can upgrade at a premium position, you have to do it, and that's what the Braves did. But I think William Contreras is kind of being forgotten about out in Milwaukee, but he's an awesome hitter. He really is. And 19.5 home runs is way too low.
So Nick, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I do like the pick, but I can't just let you off scot-free, okay?
Absolutely.
No free passes on this pod. So I'm gonna have 2 points. The first is in any season, even if you want to split up between multiple levels, the most games he's played is 110. What do you have to say in terms of kind of that durability? It seems like the 110 mark, and granted that he's entering his age 25 season, so if there was more time to play 160-ish games, it would have been earlier, right?
Yeah. I don't have an argument against the health argument, right? Staying healthy. That's kind of just part of the bets, and that's why it's gambling, you know? And that's why unders are typically the safer bets. This is a one-unit play. I always say there's no such thing as a lock, even though in my bio on Twitter it says locks don't lose. It's obviously not true. But yeah, I don't have a huge argument against that. I hope the dude doesn't get hurt. And I think even if he does play 110 games, I know you said that's his max. Like I said, he played 97 games. Is that what I said?
97 last year in the pros and then 13 for AAA. So he's had that 110 mark in 2019 and in 2022.
Yeah, so just 97 big league games last year, and he cashed this prop in 97 games.
Does it worry you at all that he's going to a worse hitting lineup on paper where maybe he doesn't get as many pitches as he saw in Atlanta?
That's also a good argument. I don't think the Brewers lineup is really that bad. I know people like to.
I'll disagree with you on that all day. First disagreement.
Yeah, that's our first disagreement. Let's pull up here. So runs per game last year, the Brewers were 10th in runs per game last year.
Bro, we're looking at this year. Tyrone Taylor out the first month. Christian Yelich going to have some back issues come up. Jesse Winker, offseason neck surgery.
we're talking about Tyrone Taylor here. That's like that Allen Iverson
Tyrone
thing.
Taylor was probably like third on the team in home runs last year without looking at the depth chart.
Yeah, I bet the Brewers win total over last year and lost that, but I just don't. I think with the park that they play in, I just don't think their lineup is that bad. They just somehow manufacture runs. They have a good blend of guys who can hit for power and guys who get on base and can make contact. I don't think it's a huge. I mean, yes, it is a downgrade from Atlanta's lineup, who probably have the best lineup in baseball this year. So that is also a good argument that I guess I can concede on that one, on that argument. But I
It's
don't
not
think we're not talking 30 home runs here, right? We're talking 20.
it's no conceding. It's friendly banter, like I think
Yeah,
of it.
absolutely.
And my thing, I personally like the William Contreras. Like you said, he hit 20 in 97 games last year. You assume barring healthy, and now that the NL does have a DH, he's locked in for at least 110, 115, where he should be able to clear that mark. I do think, just for the due diligence for us to not necessarily agree or to not have some pushback, but I
Yeah.
do like that bet a lot. The next one that I'm looking at is Kyle Wright under 13.5 wins, which is minus 110 on DraftKings. If you paid attention to fantasy baseball last year, Kyle Wright is somebody that helped probably win your league. He went 21-5. This is after him going a combined 2-8 the previous 4 seasons that he's been in the MLB. And that's part of the reason why I'm taking the under here. I think this is a huge recency bias. When you look at his ERA by year going into last season, it was 4.5, 8.69, 5.21, and 9.95. Now, last season, he did get better. He had a 3.19 ERA, but it was actually a 3.89 expected ERA. Kyle Wright is somebody that I think got very lucky last year in terms of the stats that he had, ERA, WHIP, but also the wins. I think the Braves gave him a lot of run support. He did not deserve to lead the majors in wins when you think of how many pitchers are better than him, that either the bullpen blew the save or they didn't get enough run support from there. And just from the injury perspective, too, because I think this goes into a lot of unders, Kyle Wright received a cortisone shot in January and might not, and once again, I emphasize might not, be ready for the beginning of the season. So when you look at somebody that last year started 30 games, but prior to that had only started 14 in his career, that's going to be a big milestone for him to try to clear that threshold. Now, let's say he even gets to 25. That means he has to win more than half of his outings. And I think for somebody that is coming off a cortisone shot that has a career 4+ ERA prior to last season, I mean, he threw 180 innings last season, and I want to give him his flowers. He had a great season, and I definitely want to emphasize that. But prior to that, he had thrown about 70 innings the prior 4 years. So what Kyle Wright are you going to get? I think it's somewhere in the middle, which is why I think you'll get somewhere in that 10 to 11 max win. 13.5 is very gracious for me, and this is one I feel very confident about the under on.
I like this one a lot too. And I do think with the new shift restrictions, I mean, Kyle Wright is not by any means an elite strikeout pitcher. I think he's due for some regression as far as his earned runs this year too, with not having all of the analytics and fielders positioned and whatnot. I think it's going to be hard. I would bet it's impossible for Kyle Wright to repeat his wins from last year. It was outrageous. I think he topped Max Fried by like 10 wins, which that's not going to happen again. So I like this one as well. I don't have a whole lot of pushback for this one either.
I know you wouldn't. These picks are perfect. You know what, Max or Kyle Wright is going to have a big slice of regression pie coming. That's my favorite type of pie.
Oh yeah.
So Nick, I want to highlight 2 last ones before we get out of here. So I'm going to go back to you. And if you're on the YouTube page, once again, pulling this player card up. If you are listening on the podcast version, I would highly recommend that you go to the YouTube, because throughout this, I will pull up our cards on there, the units or the odds, and then the units on there. But Nick, looking at your list again, what is something that you feel very confident on? And Nick is on mute. He's hit that rookie mistake.
Yeah, first time for everything. Seiya Suzuki was the prop. Seiya Suzuki under 22.5 home runs. And this is not me hating on Seiya Suzuki. I like Seiya Suzuki. I'm really bummed that he's actually going to be out for the World Baseball Classic. I was excited to watch that Japan team. But Suzuki has an oblique strain. So the Cubs have him questionable for opening day. They've kind of been hush-hush about it, about the severity of it and whatnot. And I got this from baseballstrength.org. And you don't need to be a baseball health scientist to know that oblique injuries kind of reoccur. 55% of oblique injuries result in a re-injury. Suzuki also added 20 pounds of muscle this offseason. And it just seems like anytime you see a player doing this kind of massive body change, it doesn't end well. Not in whether it's football, baseball, whatever the sport. It just seems like when a player goes through a massive body change, I think like Lucas Giolito last year added a bunch of weight to him, and we saw what he did last year. He just dropped back down to where his quote normal weight, normal body size is. Anyways, not going to keep on talking about Suzuki's injury. Even if he is healthy for the whole season, last season he hit 14 home runs in 111 games. That full projection for 162 games was 20.4, right? And I know that he was adjusting to MLB pitching, life in a new country. I still think that his ceiling this season, especially already having an injury, is around 2021, which will be pushing it. And I also think that the Cubs are going to be playing it safe for him. We know that the Cubs are not going to be a World Series contender this year. At least I don't think so. And I can't imagine that the people managing Seiya Suzuki's time will be thinking that as well. But Wrigley is also 17th in right-handed hitting home run park factors, which is not doing him any favors, like I've said before. And this is my last point on Seiya Suzuki. He hit 202 and 190 versus breaking and off-speed pitches in 2022. And I definitely think pitchers are going to exploit that in 2023 as well. That's my spiel on Seiya Suzuki's under, I think 22.5 home runs is what it was. Yep, 22.5.
Nick, I love this pick like I love my future firstborn child. So just to give reference, if you do find this on Bovada, you are getting a more profitable bet. This line is 21.5 on Caesars with a under of -130. So it's already heavily favored the under. And if you can squeeze in one more home run, I would do it. So I want to add a couple things that are going to help bolster the points. Cubs president of baseball operations, Jed Hoyer, said on Thursday that Suzuki is, quote, in strong jeopardy of missing the start of the regular season. Now, this comes out with a month prior. We don't know if there's going to be any setbacks. They haven't really given a firm timetable. And when we saw Tyler Glasnow have an oblique strain, and I know this is a pitcher versus a hitter, that's a 6 to 8 week injury at minimum. Mm-hmm. So you think Suzuki is going to miss the beginning of the season. Now, when you look last year, out of the 111 games he played in, he started in right field 106 of them. So this isn't somebody like a pitcher that does pitch every fifth day. This is somebody that is playing every day. And in addition to hitting, is playing in the field where he's moving laterally. He's throwing the ball if it comes to him. They're going to want to make sure he's 100%, as he did sign a 5-year, $85 million contract in 2022. He is in the second year of it. And like you said, I don't think the Cubs are in a position to really go all in. They're going to want to protect the health of him. I think he's the second or third highest paid player on the team. So somebody that they don't really want to risk the long-term risk or their health of. I love that bet. And that's something that I will definitely probably tail if I have the odds to.
Sweet. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a few years back, Aaron Judge also had a lingering oblique injury just all year long and just kind of wrecked his season. And nobody quite has a body size like Aaron Judge, but Seiya Suzuki's not a small guy either. So you see these big guys, especially he just bulked up, put 20 pounds of muscle on this offseason. I think that's a big deal.
I totally agree with you. Different body type, sophomore slump, things of that nature. The next one that I bet is Shohei Ohtani under 210 strikeouts on DraftKings. I actually liked the under 13.5 wins better. But this is just something that I found more favorable odds on at minus 115 as opposed to minus 120. So when you look at Shohei Ohtani last year, he had a great year pitching. He went 15-9, a 2.33 ERA, and 166 innings pitched. But we really care about the strikeouts at 219. So they only moved the line about 9. Now, one of the things that really helped me make this decision is we have a show, and I'm not trying to shamelessly plug, but the Fantasy Baseball Beat, where 3 of the guys on our team, Mike Carter, Chris Torres, and Carlos Marcano, interview beat reporters from each team to kind of get an inside edge to help with fantasy baseball. And they had Jeff Fletcher on, who is the beat writer for the Angels. And they were asking about the rotation. And with almost no hesitation at all, he says it will be a 6-man rotation. There's no doubt in my mind. So when you think about that, Shohei Ohtani last season had 28 starts. I see those starts going down to 25, 23. When you look in 2021, he did have 23 starts, 130 innings, and 156 strikeouts. Now, you keep in mind of just what a unicorn player Shohei Ohtani is. I think we take for granted that he can do this year in, year out, but there's a very real chance that he couldn't. In 2020, he threw 1.2 innings. He was shut down all of 2019, and in 2018, he threw 51.2 innings. I think because the Angels want depth in their rotation, they view Ohtani as more of a hitter, and maybe he's somebody that pitches a little bit more sparingly, which is why I feel more confident with Ohtani pitching props. But I think it's just a high-barred hit from last season of the 219. Once again, Ohtani could have the 2021 season where he went 9-2, a 3.18 ERA, 130 innings, and 156 strikeouts, 10.8 Ks per 9, and everybody would say that's great, but it still hits the under. So that's why I feel very confident with this.
So I might disagree on this one a little.
Oh, yeah, let's go. Let's go.
So just looking at this, and this is on his player profile for Pitcher List. Last year, talking about Suzuki still, Shohei Ohtani was 8th in swinging strike rate. He was 9th in called strikes whiff percentage, and he was 5th in strikeout percentage. I get the longevity aspect of this. Shohei Ohtani is also going to be a free agent this offseason. Who's to say that the Angels, who haven't made the playoffs in forever, and that's talked about all the time, who's to say that they don't just let it rip for Ohtani and just listen, this guy's a Dodger next year. Everybody knows it. Let's just let it rip. Let's just squeeze all the juice we can get out of this guy. And what if they do that? And that's my argument. I mean, we've seen it. If he does throw the amount of innings, he's going to cash this prop. So that's just the if.
You're pushing back on me, and I'm going to now push back on you initially. Do you think that Shohei Ohtani has anything to prove to get a massive payday in free agency?
I do not.
So realistically, Shohei Ohtani probably knows this. His agents know this. So I think it's about now preserving his health. And if you remember Ohtani, because the reason he didn't pitch in 2019 was because he was rehabbing from surgery to his UCL, which his right throwing elbow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not arguing about the effectiveness of Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher. His strikeouts per 9 has been 11, 16.2, 10.8, 11.9. Great pitch mix. Somebody that is probably the most unique player in baseball history. But when you look at that volume of 210 strikeouts, to me, that's a longevity play. And I think the longevity for Shohei Ohtani is for him to pitch as minimal as possible. Obviously, the Angels want to compete, but with that nugget that I have of the 6-man rotation, I just think Ohtani preserves himself a little bit. And I think there's more wear and tear on your body being a pitcher than a hitter, barring injury, hit by pitch, things of that nature.
Yeah, I agree in that aspect. And I also agree taking a season-long under and something that is accumulative like that is always the safer bet than the over.
No, I love it. I love it. Just a little bit of pushback here and there. Can't agree on anything. We gotta have these kind of speculative thoughts for the people that might be listening that just think that we talked everything prior to the show, because that's not the case actually.
Yep.
But Nick, I'm gonna pull up your card, And give me one last player prop that you really love.
All right, one last prop. I'd love to talk
One
about
last
all
prop.
these.
One last prop.
So, all right, let's go with Wander Franco because I love Wander Franco and he's my boy. Now, this prop for Wander Franco is over 14.5 home runs. And yes, you heard that right. 14 and a half home runs for Wander Franco. That doesn't sound right. And it didn't look right when I saw it either. Wander Franco just hit 6 home runs in 83 games in 2022. Wander Franco played hurt probably in half of those games. If you remember, he came out of the gate and was scorching, was probably one of the best players in baseball for the first maybe month or so of the season. And he got hurt somewhere in that stretch. And when he came back, which was pretty late in the season, he really just wasn't right. And I know that his Savant page doesn't have great average exit velocity for last season, which again I credit that to him not being right. I think an even banged up Wander last year, if he was healthy, he would have hit 10 home runs. I really think Wander Franco is going to be healthy for this year, and I think he's going to play 150 games. If none of you guys remember, which anybody who keeps up with baseball and prospects, Wander Franco was like the crown jewel of Major League Baseball's farm for a couple years. He's never been a huge power guy. I think his last season in AAA, if I pace that out, it's about 150 games. I think he would have hit about 26 home runs, if I remember that correctly off the top of my head. I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong, you can roast me on that on Twitter. Feel free to. But I love this play. It might be a homer play. I am a Red Sox fan, so it's technically not a homer play. I should hate the Rays, but I've always had a soft spot for them. And he was 85th percentile in max exit velocity, which I usually don't look at max exit velocity for anything like this. But the max exit velocity gives him credit for when he was healthy and how he was hitting the ball. And I really think that Wander Franco was not healthy last year. We haven't seen what Wander Franco is capable of, and 14 and a half is outrageously low for Wander. I think he hits 20 home runs this year with ease.
Nick, I want to like this pick.
Okay.
I think 14 and a half is a good line. I want to end this on a good note.
Uh-huh.
But I'd be lying to myself if I didn't give you a little bit of pushback.
Go for it.
And once again, I want to like this. So we're talking about the max exit velocity in the 85th percentile. Max exit velocity can have one ball that's hit very well, where Wander Franco blindly closed his eyes and swung as hard as he could and somehow made contact with it. But when you look at average exit velocity in the 18th percentile, hard hit percentage in the 26th percentile, that worries me a little bit. Wander Franco, can't say his name, is a great contact hitter. Throughout the years, 351, 318, 319, 313, 288, 429, and 277 last year in MLB. So I think from the toolsy perspective, somebody that is a great guy to get on base, especially in OBP leagues. He's in points leagues. He's definitely somebody to target. He's never had more than 14 home runs in a season, even going back to single A in 2018, 11 and 61 games. And I know it's only 61 games, but the most he's played in a season has been 90, and that was 2022 between MLB and AAA. He actually played 83 games in MLB. I just need to see it first. And I love Wander Franco as a talent, but there is also part of me, and I can't pull this up right now, but there was just kind of rumors about his maturity last year, whether how serious he takes it. They kind of compared it to the Yoan Moncada situation, where he got paid early, and it's like he really just cared about the finances, didn't really care about much. He had gotten by so far on just natural talent that once he got paid, he didn't care about putting in the extra effort. That's just something I worry about a little bit. He's a 5'10", 189 frame. I would love to be wrong on this. This is something I'm probably going to stay away from, but I can see why you have the optimism on the over.
Yeah, no, those are some really good points. And again, I never would use max exit velocity as any kind of talking point. I just think I personally am throwing his average exit velocities out from last year because anybody who watched Tampa last year and watched Wander, he wasn't right. That whole team was so banged up. That offense was. I'm really optimistic on the Rays as a whole this season. They're going to have hopefully everybody's going to be healthy this year. Margot's never necessarily healthy, but when he is in the lineup, it's a good lineup. And I think last year we saw the worst case scenario for almost all of that team. And I think this year I'm all in on Tampa this year as a whole. And I think that being in that lineup, Wander's going to get a boost from that. And like I said, all those are good points. I just think 14.5 is too low. I think he's going to hit 20 home runs this year.
I agree. I that's one of the reasons for everything that I mentioned. I do like the number of 14. I think 14 is very low. He hit 6 in 83 games last year. So even if you kind of extrapolate that, I know 83 times 2 would be 166, so slightly over the 182, but he would give you 12 on there. It's a little bit close, but once again, wasn't 100% with that hamstring. That's something where I hope it hits. I'll probably stay away from. The last one I have is if you go to Caesars, Joey Votto has under 18.5 home runs as his prop line. I think that's a steal. That's almost free money. It's basically going to MGM or Caesars and just saying, hey, look, I want this deposit. Joey Votto last year played in 91 games, had 11 home runs, a 205 average. Now I'm going to give him his flowers in 2021, 36 homers in 129 games. But looking at 2019, 15 homers in 142. 2018, 12 homers in 145 games. So 3 out of the last 4 years when he's played a full season, he's hit the under amount on that. Joey Votto is going to be 39 years old in the last year of the 10-year, $225 million deal he signed with the Reds back in 2012, which seems like such a bargain. He is coming off a major league worst batting average, OPS, home runs, and RBIs. The big thing for me of why I'm doing this is Joey Votto had off-season surgery to repair a torn rotator cuff and biceps in his left shoulder. And they did not say that he was going to be good for opening day. And when they asked him if he was still in pain, he declined to comment. And these are some of the quotes from him. Quote, I want to make sure when I come back ready. It's not more complicated than that. If that's opening day, if I start coming back and playing tomorrow, so be it. So I just think with Joey Votto, this is probably going to be his last season. I think he's going to want to make sure he's healthy for it. He talked about he wants to be 100% healthy. And that means for things like check swing, sliding into a base awkwardly, range of motion. So not just making sure that he's 80, 90%, but all of the minor things that include baseball when you have the entire left side of your body with the biceps and rotator cuff. I think Joey Votto will play probably 120 games max, and which makes the line even more profitable. But to me, this was one of the favorite ones I found. Under 18.5 home runs. I think that's a name that is kind of playing up the prop. And if you've been following baseball, you know that the under is pretty juicy.
That one I might be betting after I get off of this podcast.
There we go.
When I saw your list, that was one where I looked at it and I was like, man, he plays in Great American Ballpark. He's really reinvented himself to sell out for power. But, I mean, 18.5, like you said, he's already not healthy. He's not going to be a guy who's going to go onto the field and give 50%. I mean, he's either going to give it his all or he's not. So, I mean, 18.5.
This was the direct quote from him, and it was from 3 days ago, so March 1st. I have to be in a place where I can handle the awkward moments, the rundowns, the dives, check swing, ball off the end of the bat, whatever it is. Somebody throwing the ball past me, full range of motion, full finish, getting fooled on a pitch. Those are all things that are a part of the game every single day. If I'm not ready for that, then I'm significantly increasing my re-injury risk, and I'm not thinking about that. It's not like I'm hedging against re-injury. I just want to come back and play well, and I want to perform every day. I want to perform. That, to me, sounds like someone that isn't close to 100%. And opening day is about a month away. Once again, I think this is Joey Votto's last season. I think he's going to want to make sure he's healthy for it. And if that means coming back in May or June and having 9 home runs and batting .250, so be it. But I just don't think that he's going to rush it.
Yeah, like I've said a couple of times, 18 and a half, it's just a lot for him. And I love Joey Votto. So it stinks that we're betting his under. I mean, just as a baseball fan, I think everybody should love Joey Votto. If they don't, he's a genius mind for the game and just an awesome personality. So, but as far as where our money's going, I agree. This is just like go up to the counter and just be like, all right, where's my money?
Yeah, and even just looking last year, average exit velocity 65th percentile, hard hit percentage 58th percentile. This is a guy that's 6'2", 220. He's just had a great career, but the body is starting to break down on him. And I think it's something that, look, you just take advantage of. If the books are offering, and I'm somebody that has between 4 to 6 books myself, Nick has a couple books. We're doing the research for you, and we're giving you what we think are the most profitable bets with our reasoning behind it. But Nick, that being said, you and I each covered 6 props. Hopefully we make the people some money. But before we get out of here, please tell the audience where they can find you, anything that you want to plug, things of that nature.
Yeah. So my Twitter is at Nick's MLB Picks. I post all of my bets on my Dub Club is what it's called. It's a website that you can subscribe to my picks and they get texted to your phone directly when I make them. So I'll make a pick, put it on my Dub Club. Everybody gets the same odds as me 99% of the time, unless things change in that 1 minute. And I've also been contributing to a Discord starting this week called Baddies in Vegas. I didn't make the name, but yeah, that's the Discord I contribute to, whether you want to check that out or not. It's a cool place, a lot of good contributors in there as well. But just me as a person, it's all baseball all the time for me. I know a lot of sports handicappers do 5-6 different sports. I put all of my eggs in baseball. I'm just a lover of the game, lover of the numbers, the storylines, and I was like, yo, let's make some money on all this passion and knowledge and just drive I have for it. So that's me, and that's where you can find me.
Let's rob the books. The book's been robbing us enough. And if there's anything to take away, Vegas Baddie Club Discord is something that I'll be joining. Now, Nick and I covered a lot of promos tonight. One thing we didn't talk about is triples for players. But speaking of triples, when you go to underdogfantasy.com and you use promo code TRIPLE, they will match your deposit up to $100. Now, one of the things we've been doing is we've been doing underdog drafts. You can find them on our YouTube channel. We do them every Wednesday at 8 p.m. So if you ever want to hop in, send me a tweet at TripPlayFantasy or David at DMendio2. And we're more than happy to have you. And Nick has been on a couple drafts. Really just fun best ball to get exposure to different players and chop it up with people who love baseball just like us. But for Nick, for Doc, we're going to catch you guys next week talking about our team favorite over-unders. Yeah. And I promise you, there will be a lot more disagreement on that. But we'll catch you guys on the next one.